Is there a way that a black man can date a white woman and that relationship is void of race?
No.
There's no way. Wait a minute. No, not void. We're not saying take it out. But I'm saying it doesn't need to be a factor that's a detriment to that relationship.
It's just like when you got some coffee that's too black, which means it's too strong. What you do, you integrate it with cream.
Speak repression. Who's the teacher that's teaching it? What's the arm that's helping the teacher reach it? What's the word and who's defining it? Who is learning it and who is blinded by it? Who's the victim and who is dicking them? These are questions to ask worldwide. See the methodology, the process of genocide. Don't let indoctrination lead you to homicide.
Okay, so we in the studio again today. This one is going to be a very intense topic. You got 5 brothers in the house. We're going to be talking about interracial dating and our respective views. We have as our guest Semi-Conscious's twin brother. We're going to call him the twin in this episode, the twin, and also Semi-Conscious's cousin. We're going to call him Primo. Okay? All right, and again, I'm Hidden One, and we got No BS in the house, and we're going to jump right into it. All right, so fellas, let's talk about it. Interracial dating, specifically dating white women. What's your thoughts on that? Should we be doing that? Is that a big no-no?
I've never dated a white woman.
So no personal experience.
I mean, I've hooked up with a white woman. That's not really dating.
No, it's not dating.
So that's my extent of the white flesh.
And is that by choice, or is that is there a preference thing going on there? Is there a political thing going on? Like, what's going on that's making you say, I've never dated a white woman,
I guess I never wanted it bad enough. Like, in my experience, black guys who date interracially sort of like this whole dynamic where they're teaching white women about blackness, or they think they're teaching them about their perspective. And I've heard that dynamic described very enthusiastically, and I don't share the enthusiasm for being in a relationship with that dynamic. But that's just me personally. Obviously, people feel differently.
Got you.
Do any of y'all feel like that dynamic ever came up when you were with someone who wasn't the same race as you?
That's the thing. When I was dating interracially, I was much younger than I am now. And I think the biggest problem with interracial relationships is that people get into them with the wrong reasons. I think they could be a beautiful thing, but only if you get into them with the right reasons.
Okay.
So you don't date interracially anymore?
No, I have. I do. Specifically with a white woman? Nah, it's been some years.
All right, so let's
But my main point in bringing that up was like when I was doing it, I would say definitely those wrong reasons was a part of it. Which is why I'm able to be aware of it right now.
And we're going to get to that whole question of right reasons and wrong reasons, but I want us to talk about dating specifically white women, right? Because only because I think there's more political issues there. Like, let's say, for example, if you're dating a woman who you don't have the same historical issues, with that woman, it's maybe complex, but it doesn't have the same complexities than, let's say, it's a white woman.
Yeah, well,
I understand.
I think that's valid.
We have a very particular history with white people.
Right, because if you're dating someone who's Indian, you can bond on your relationship with white people.
Yeah, you can both talk about how much you hate the white man.
Yeah. Oh no, just not necessarily talking about how much you hate or just dealing with white people on a day-to-day people on a day-to-day basis. Dealing with white people, you can bond on that.
So with that said, then, is there because you said for the right reasons,
right.
When you get in these relationships for the right reasons,
yep.
Is there a way to be in a relationship with a white woman for the right reasons, quote unquote?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what is that? What does that look like?
Whenever you get into a relationship with anybody, the number one thing needs to be deep connection with that person on a deep level. And this is something that is outside of just your race or just what you are identified as or what you as a person identify as. When you connect to somebody, you're going deeper than those external factors. Race being one of them.
Okay, so you're calling race an external factor.
It's both. It's both an external and internal thing. It's your internal identity based on what's been externally placed on you. Like all of these classes and identity factors. It's both. It's not just one.
Dealing with society. I know what he means by external.
No, I know what he means, but I'm just saying calling race an external factor because like he cleared it up because it's not only an external factor.
Right.
You know what I mean? But still, even with that said, there's several layers. Guys, jump in there, address that stuff because we're trying to find out like is there a way that a black man can date a white woman and that relationship is void of race?
No.
There's no way.
Wait a minute. No, not void. We're not saying take it out, but I'm saying it's not going to be. It doesn't need to be a factor that's a detriment to that relationship. It can be if the wrong reasons are present in that relationship.
See, I'm glad you said that.
But it doesn't need to be. The race factor doesn't need to be a detrimental force of that relationship.
Would you admit that the history of white and black people lends that relationship to be a detrimental one in the sense that history weighs against it likely succeeding?
Of course. That's the biggest challenge with dating interracially. That dark history between whites and blacks.
So in your mind, we have the burden of overcoming the challenge of history to have successful interracial relationships?
It depends. If that history has marred you to the point where you can't have a pleasant time in a relationship and something that close to somebody who's white, then please don't get in one. Because there's no way that can have a chance of success. It's not going to be a positive experience for you or the other person.
Well, in what way wouldn't that history mar you to the ability that you can't have a successful relationship?
Or how are you unmarred?
Yeah, that's more my question. How are you unmarred by a history?
Like, it's separating that history from the person you are in this moment involved with.
That's called the sunken place.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's not the sunken place.
Because you're basically detaching her.
It's the sunken place. I knew it once they said it. That's not the sunken place.
Fuck you guys, it's not the sunken place, goddammit. I'll have my white pussy.
It's not. You're not saying the history never happened. You're not. That would be such misguided anger to place that history on this person. Now I'm speaking for the woman. To place that negativity from that history on the woman that you're seeing, I feel like that's misplaced anger.
You know what it is? I can definitely. He used a term where he said having a good time or having a good experience with the person you're with in that moment. And that's totally possible if we're hanging out at the coffee place or if we're hanging out at a restaurant. But as soon as we start trying to do events, I'm gonna choose. I choose places where I don't have to be completely surrounded by white people, because for me, that makes me uncomfortable. Having 1,000 white people and me and a select other few black people, that makes me uncomfortable. I feel like I shouldn't be there, and it doesn't make her uncomfortable. She's got to consider that in how she makes plans. It'll cause an issue.
I get those feelings too. I still feel the way I do. But those are just sensations that I'm aware of when I'm in those situations.
See, but you want to be in white space. It's like that's what you look to be there. It's like that's a very different relationship. Like I literally don't want to be around white people. Most of the time. I don't like to be black around them. I don't want to hang around them. I don't want to hear things they might have to say in my presence. It's like you're choosing to be in that environment because there's something there. I don't know.Maybe you like the restaurants. There's something about that scene that you're drawn to.
It's not just a white scene. This tends to be it's a lot of the places that I go to. I mean, we live in a country, in a city that's predominantly white. It's pretty unavoidable. especially a lot of places that I go to. Yeah, a lot of people are white in those spaces.
Now, I'm not saying that this is you, but there are a lot of black people who are just not comfortable with a lot of black people around. You know, they don't want to be around a lot of niggas.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think Chris Rock probably said it the best when he told his joke. He said there's a war going on between black people and niggas, and the niggas got to go. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's like some people are not comfortable being around certain types of... So what they do is they find themselves in places where there's not a lot of niggas around. You know? Even more
than that, there are black people who view their ability to be around white people as a sort of enlightenment. That I can be an accommodating black person.
Or I get accepted amongst these people.
Right. I can behave properly around white people. It's basically what it comes down to. I don't make them uncomfortable. And if you somehow are black in a way that makes white people uncomfortable, you haven't mastered this form of enlightenment.
Yeah, you're uncouth.
Interesting.
You know, you're closing yourself off to opportunities that would otherwise arise.
Yeah, but nah. I've going to a white school and partying with white people and living with white people. I don't have that issue being around white people and making them uncomfortable. White people are totally comfortable with me. I'm not comfortable with them. I'm comfortable with them on a one-to-one basis or small groups. Mm-hmm. 2 of us will go out, two white people, 3 black people, or small numbers like that. But when I'm starting to be in a situation where it's a sea of white people, like a music festival, I'm uncomfortable.
Okay.
I think it's all about what you project out. What you project out and how you respond to what you take in.
How black people respond to their oppression, you mean?
No, that's not what I mean at all.
That has to be what you mean.
No, I think people respond differently. Like, I definitely feel, it depends where I am. If I'm around certain white people, if I'm at my job, which is predominantly white, I definitely alter the way I act. Because it's predominantly white. And so what we're talking about in a professional world, I definitely tone things down. Just because I just don't feel comfortable enough to express just like I would with my friends.
Oh,
so it's different.
I have a different experience at work because I'm surrounded by white people, but the white people that I'm surrounded by most of the time, they don't have the power to have an opinion on how I act. So I don't white it up for them.
Or tone down the blackness.
Or tone down the blackness. So I don't know.
But when
it depends on the person. It depends on the person.
You see, you're saying it doesn't depend on how you respond to your oppression. But when you say take it in, well, that depends on how you take it in. What are you taking in as a black person?
My thing is, if I'm attracted to somebody, I'm not looking at them as my oppressor. I'm looking at them as a person who I can have potential to have an experience with.
But you're choosing to do that.
No. But a single person isn't your oppressor, and a single person can't oppress you. But I guess that maybe that is where that's coming from. My issue with being at Lollapalooza or something, where there are thousands of white people, and I'm just one of the few minority black people in the area. I feel like I'm bothers me because I'm so outnumbered.
Well, you're around people that participate in your oppression, whether you want to view them as an oppressor or not.
Definitely.
We do live in a white country, so.
Right, but you just said you're choosing not to view them as your oppressor. They participate in your oppression because they're white, whether they want to or not. That's how the system is set up.
Oh yeah, they're born into the same system that we are.
So how are you not viewing her as an oppressor?
She's not an active participant.
See, that's a double thing. I just said
no. That's not a double thing. That's not a double thing. There are plenty white people who are quote unquote against oppression and who actively fight against oppression. So I wouldn't call.
Where they at though?
What do you mean where they at?
You're talking about having a deep, profound relationship with the family members of the historical oppressors and people that vote for and support the systems that oppress us today. And when you ask them about these profound issues, whether it's reparations or police brutality or mass incarceration, they're very, very mum on the word, or maybe their words are nice, but their actions are nowhere to be found. So you talk about sacrificing some major, principles if you're talking about just ignoring that or overlooking that, and you can't have any profound relationship with someone who's totally disagreeable with you and your family and your community. That is just doing a disservice to you and your family, just dating someone who's okay with or not going to actively fight against people that are hurting you.
I don't think it's important for people to actively fight against, because I don't think everybody's wired to be in that fighter mentality.
But some people do actively fight against.
But definitely, I mean, if you guys are going to pursue an interracial relationship, there are obvious points in race where you guys should agree. Otherwise, there's going to be unavoidable points in tension, which is ridiculous.
My main issue with having a long-term relationship with a white, specifically a white person, not necessarily someone else, is raising children in America. Maybe if we raise children somewhere else, but raising children in America as a white dad and as a black dad and a white mother.
Oh yeah,
I don't feel like, why would I want to, fuck my kid's head up?
Well, for me, it's more than that. It's not just about the kids. It's like, I'm not going to marry into your family and pretend that I'm a part of your family. You're still my oppressor. Nothing we do in the bedroom or when we go out on dates, if I'm dating this hypothetical white woman, changes how I view white people. I don't view any of my interactions with her as some sort of pardon on white people.
Then you can't be in an interracial relationship. Definitely. If you harbor these feelings, you can't even be friends with white people.
I don't believe anyone can be in an interracial relationship without making an accommodation to that white person if you're black. You are choosing to play along with the game. When you say, I don't view you as an oppressor, she would like you not to view her as an oppressor. You're accommodating her wishes, whether you realize it or not. That's the only way you can possibly be in a relationship with someone who historically oppresses you, if you actively ignore their role in your oppression. If you go to their parents' house and choose to ignore that you're basically enjoying plunders, you're enjoying the plunders of your people, pretty much.
I've never met white parents. I've only met black parents. So, yeah, I can't relate. What is that like, meeting white parents?
Oh, that's fine. I've met some good white parents. What? They treated me nice, gave me shelter.
Did you feel like they were trying to,
experiences? I feel like
trick you into this a good place?
Anybody tapping a tea cup?
I'm drinking tea now.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
Tap the glass, see if you drop.
I was going to point that out.
Nah, there was this one time. No. When you apply a group thinking to an individual, that's when reality gets skewed, because that's exactly what you're doing. When you talk to a person like that person is a they, right? Because that's pretty much what you're doing. You're saying you are my oppressor, but you're not really talking about that individual. You're talking about white people. So you're applying a group thing to an individual, and that's where reality gets skewed.
Okay, no.
You're saying you are my oppressor. And you're not saying that person is specifically, but you're saying that person represents.
No, she is my oppressor.
That person.
Oh, you actually think that actual white woman is oppressing you?
Is she white?
Yes. You're
then
saying
she's my oppressor.
Then just by you being white, you are automatically oppressing me.
Okay, well, this is the thing is maybe she is not individually oppressing you in this individual moment, all right? But the day she wants to call on her system, all right, to come at you, she has access to that. The day she says, okay, this man raped me, all right, because she's mad at you about something, whatever, her system jumps on their feet and they come at you. You see what I'm saying? And you're not given the benefit of the doubt in her system. She is. You know what I'm saying? So she may not be directly oppressing you in that moment. And maybe she would never do that. But the fact of the matter is she does have certain privileges in this society that she occupies that you don't possess. And in order for you to be in a relationship with her, you got to forget about all of that.
Yeah. Why are you use that against her? Just because she benefits from this white society because she's white, why use that against her?
You see,
it's like a negative.
I'm glad
man, I can't be with you because you get to experience all these things that I can't. What kind of mentality is that?
I'm glad you brought up rape, because when that system comes at you for raping that white woman, they're not going to do so race neutrally. There are white men who we know have raped white women and did no jail time, and black women and got no jail time. It's like they're coming at you for being black, dating a white woman. She knows that. She knows that's how that system is going to react to her. So you pretending that doesn't exist for the sake of your relationship is you being dishonest. You're the only one participating in that lie.
No, I'm not pretending. I've seen from first-hand experience that does exist. So,
what are you talking about?
There's white women who wouldn't behave in that way, who wouldn't falsely accuse you.
But there's no white woman who couldn't behave in that way if they chose to.
Yeah,
all of them can play their white card against them.
Yeah, but I don't think I think that's just being a bad woman, being a bad person.
Right? There are black women who have accused black men, and they've gone to jail.
Yeah, it's not a white thing.
On a lie.
It's a personal.
But they haven't.
There are black women. This is part of the reason why black women try to get into fights with men, because they know when they scream and yell, the cops are gonna come at the chance to arrest a nigga. That is part of just being a bad person.
That doesn't mean black
because
women.
Black women 100% use the system and saying that man hit me, knowing that that's a black man, knowing how the system is going to get that black woman, get that black man. So we can't say that black women don't use the system to get black men, because that's exactly what they do.
That does not.
That's true.
That exactly happens.
That's true. That's true. But we're talking about interracial dating.
And secondly, that doesn't put black women.
No, I'm helping out his point. I'm helping out his point.
No, I can take it, but I'm saying at this point we're talking about interracial dating. At this point, in certain privileges
I'm not on your side, but I'm just I'm trying to help your point out.
But that point doesn't put black women in the space of white women, even though they use the system in what would seem to be the same way. It's not the same way. They're not coming as a white woman. The minute you come as a white woman, you occupy a space. You have status as a white woman that no other group in this country has. That doesn't change just because you choose to ignore that. That always exists. It exists whether you want it to or not. You can pretend it doesn't, or you can acknowledge it. But that doesn't change what is actually happening.
Well, you can have a fruitful, beautiful connection with the right white lady, and if it is the right person, then she's not going to use her privileges in a way to hurt you. Because why would you do that to somebody you really genuinely
So
care
she's
about?
a benevolent oppressor. She's a good master.
No, I'm saying these women exist. There are women who would not use their privilege in a way to hurt you.
What is the difference between your argument and a good master argument?
Explain to me your rendition of a good master.
See, because you're coming from the position that because she's benevolent and doesn't use her privilege to oppress you, that she is a good white person. That she is not
I would
individually
just say
your
a good
oppressor.
person. Just a good person.
Who happens to be white.
Who happens to be white.
Who happens to be white. What is the difference between using that language as to that white woman and a slave using that language as to his benevolent master?
I don't like analogies, and I think this is one of the reasons why. Because you're just trying to link two things that don't link. I'm talking about you're like bringing up slavery, master, all this and that. I'm talking about a white girl right now that you can connect with.
So the history of black and white people in this country doesn't connect to this entire conversation. This conversation, which is about interracial dating, has no connection to the history of black and white people in your mind. That's completely irrelevant to this conversation.
Both you and the other person, you have to be a team. If you're a man dating a white lady, you guys have to be a team. You guys have to be aware of the history. But if you guys really are serious about having this relationship be successful, you cannot let that history make your team crumble. You can't make it whatever you guys have. You can't let that history affect that in a negative way. That's going to cause you guys to resent each other. That's going to cause you guys to feel uncomfortable expressing all of yourselves around each other. If these things are taking place, you guys are doing it wrong. And you guys need to reassess or get the hell out of it because you guys aren't developed enough to handle it.
I think black men can have a superficial relationship with white women, like a party friend or a special friend. But if you talk about having a deep, intimate, profound relationship, how do you go to a white woman and say, how do you feel about reparations? And she say, I don't think those are necessary. And you think that's okay? Or how do you feel about the latest police brutality? And she says something like, they should have stopped. They should have stopped running. Or just, silly things that white people say all the time.
Things that are dismissive to the black experience?
Exactly.
Yeah, that shows a level of her understanding. And it shows a level of awareness that she's willing to accept. The person being dismissive to your experience is not really connecting with you.
This is representative of many white people. Many white women. This is representative of, dare I say, most white women. if we were to take a survey of how they feel about these myriad of issues that affect black people, you would find most white women are, and you can tell, this is not just theory, you can tell by the way people vote, by the surveys and questionnaires and just opinion surveys, polling, how they feel about different issues, and white women and black men will feel differently because they're different experiences, and they show they don't really have too much interest in protecting you.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who get together and they're in these relationships and they haven't sorted out all of the strong points of differences, especially when it comes to their thoughts and their viewpoints on race. They just get into these relationships without really thinking these things through, and that's why they inevitably crumble. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's definitely possible to avoid that.
Well, I think I'm sorry, Sammy. There's two concerns that I have with black people in general dating white people specifically. I think one concern that I have is that we have been taught and trained to view ourselves as individuals, though we struggle collectively, And when we start from this perspective that we're individuals and we are Americans, when we start from that perspective, and then the second concern is what sex does to an individual's mind, right? When we have those two things going on, we're willing to be flexible with all kinds of things, with our values, with our politics, with our religion and stuff like that. We create all kinds of new doctrines and new ways of viewing things to accommodate what we're really after, which is, I'm really after sex from this female. So I'm going to have to be flexible when it comes to racial issues that we experience as a collective. I'm going to have to argue for individualism, individual experience, and forget about the collective because I want this sexual contact with this female or male if the shoe's on the other foot, right? But I think that's part of what happens. That's a very strong force that pushes, black men to pursue white women. There's an American thing going on. We've been taught to be individuals. Meanwhile, the very people that we date with, they function as collectives. And that is part of how they maintain their dominance over us. While they teach us to be individuals and be Americans and don't be racist. Don't be a racist, man. They function as a racial collective in everything that they do.
That's the
and even the individuals that you come into contact to have sexual relations with are part of the collective, their collective. They're part of that collective. No matter how much they sex you up, no matter how much they smile and they cool with you, they're still a part of that collective.
Yeah, but I've seen disagreements in that collective.
Yeah, but what you haven't seen though, you have seen disagreements, but what you haven't seen is us as a people function as a collective and say, okay, we want to be sovereign now. We want to be out from under your domination. You haven't seen their reaction to that. Well, and like I said to you earlier, is that they will be the very same people that will meet you on the battlefield the day your people stand up and say, well, we don't want to pay taxes here anymore. We don't want to be under your domination anymore. They will meet you on the battlefield.
And my original point is, I think there will be some who won't.
I disagree when you say you haven't seen their reaction to that. Because that's how mass incarceration came about in the first place. Michelle Alexander maps out the entire history of how mass incarceration came about.
Right,
and it
true.
was in response to black people calling for sovereignty or freedom, because I don't even think the conversation was at sovereignty yet, but calling for freedom and autonomy in the 60s. And the entire white apparatus consented to mass incarceration because it meant putting you under control. That actually happened. There's a reason why, I don't know, the number 4 million.
It is built into the Constitution, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
The 13th Amendment. It's built into the language of the Constitution.
See, people don't understand that. People say, well, race is a social construct. Race may be a social construct, but whiteness is a legal construct. It comes with legal rights that you can take to court and validate. It comes with property rights that you can take to court and validate. Whiteness is a vested interest, and it's a birthright. No white person walking the face of the earth exists outside of that sphere.
And nor is there a white person on the face of the earth that will give up their privilege to swap places with you. This, like Dr. Claude Anderson described racism as a race. Is like, that's why the word race is used.
Yeah,
all right?
It's not. It's competitively advantageous to be a white person.
Right.
If you guys were born as white people, you guys would not mind it. Well, you guys would not mind those advantages as white people.
Right.
But we're not white. We're
Right.
black. So we feel the disadvantages, right? This is the side we feel. This is the only reality we can experience thoroughly.
And what's the only reality they can experience thoroughly?
Being a white person.
Which means what?
Which means that those are the two different realities that we can only experience.
No, see, you just tried to paint a picture of the black experience, like, oh well, the only
No, I'm just not
the only
about
way we can
blaming
understand
people
our
for being
reality
born
is
white.
from the oppressed. So you're talking about, well, the only way the oppressed can understand reality is being oppressed. But then when it comes to the oppressor, the only way they can understand reality is by oppressing us. You seem to be willing to ignore that. Like, they can only understand looking down on blackness. You are never their equal. We know that because they say that. White supremacy isn't a secret. You can read the language, and you can read exactly what they think of you.
And this is the thing, is like, I'm not blaming white people for being born white. Where I find fault is in black people for not adequately and properly responding to their condition. And where that comes from.
Which condition?
Our condition of oppression.
Okay.
Okay. We don't respond to it appropriately. Again, Dr. Claude Anderson gave a very good story he talked about this black man who was in process of being lynched. He was being beaten, and one of the guys who was beating him had like a gun, and they hit him in the head with the gun, and then the back of the gun broke off of it, and the black guy who was being beaten picked up the back of the gun and handed it to the man and said, "I'm sorry for breaking your gun." All right. This is how we're responding to our oppression. You know what I'm saying? Like we're the ones in a position that has to be apologetic about the fact that we want to be a free people, that we don't want to be dominated by a group of people who have demonstrated historically that they hate us. Okay. So I think the false context that we have with white people, it confuses all of that. Whether it's a sexual contact, whether they're in the position of our teachers, professors, educators, our pastors, it confuses us to the point we can't see our plight, and therefore we can't see our solution. We're taught that our solution is not a reality for us. We're taught, like, sovereignty, what are you talking about? You're an American. That's what we're taught. Okay? And I think all that contact that we have with them, they're our friends, and they love our music. We party with them. We hang out with them. It confuses us, and it keeps us from responding to our situation appropriately.
Well, we misunderstand the nature of their quote-unquote love for us. Because we don't see... white people don't do anything that they haven't done on the plantation. When they come to our shows and listen to our music, they did that on the plantation. When they eat our food and like, damn, we love black cooking, they did that on the plantation. When they admire our physique, when they admire everything that is about blackness, they did that on the plantation. They loved their slaves as slaves. But we interpret that as them wanting us to be their equals, or them wanting us to be among them. Like, we've longed for their love, and when they validate it, we're willing to ignore all aspects of our history together. Which is, I believe Claude Anderson uses the language, black people don't build healthy coalitions because we're too broken to enter a healthy coalition. We're constantly looking for their love and their validation. And that just leaves us open to being exploited. You're going to be, if you are a black man or a black woman seeking to date a white man or a white woman, you're going to be exploited in that relationship, and you're agreeing to that exploitation.
Dr. Boyce Watkins said white people love black people like they love their dogs. They'll feed you, they'll house you, but not really on the equal playing level, and you can't want to be loved like a dog.
I think that's extreme, man. I've had personal experiences with a bunch of white people. They did not treat me like a dog. I haven't been treated like a dog, and I would know when I'm being treated like a dog.
No, but white people treat their dogs very, very well. Let me tell you something. I was walking down the street one day. This was in Manhattan, right? It was pouring down, raining, and as I'm walking up the block, no umbrella. You know how when it's raining so bad, an umbrella is irrelevant. Like, it's like one of those days, like, it's just pouring down, so everybody's like walking without their rain. You can only see maybe like 3 feet in front of you. But I did look over and I see like this homeless man laying on a bench in that pouring down rain, and it struck me right away, like, oh my goodness, this man needs shelter, right? So I see this white woman run across the street too, and she's going, oh my God. And I'm thinking, yeah, the man, right? I'm thinking like, yeah, like, what are we going to do about this man? and there's this dog running by, she's talking about the dog. And this is a God's honest truth story. She's talking about the dog, not the man. You know, it's a black man, black homeless man. To heck with him. So what I'm saying is that some of them they treat their dogs really, really well.
I don't know.
You know, now, and I'm not saying that you was around white folks that treat you like a dog or anything to that effect, you know. But don't underestimate how well they treat their dogs.
I'm not saying they treat their dogs like shit. What I'm saying is, like, when you see an animal, you're sensitive to an animal. We live in New York City. We see homeless people every day.
Look at how
we see dogs every day.
Right, but we see animals when we see animals. We don't always see homeless people when we see homeless people. They become like normal backdrops for the city.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's something different.
Look at how
you see animals, you light up. It's an animal.
Look at how white people responded to Mike the killing dogs, and how they responded to Colin Kaepernick taking a knee because there were quote unquote bodies in the street. You see how white America views you. It's not.
I see how certain white Americans view those stories, but to label all white people in that camp of thinking is really
what percentage?
Not accurate. I don't throw out percentages.
No, I'm just saying because it's a matter of degree. If they're saying 100% of all white people are bad, and I'm saying 98%, well, your number is lower.
No, I mean I've talked to white people that support causes, pro-black causes.
And this is the thing. Listen. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you. I am not saying. I want to be clear. I am not saying that there are not white people that you can't have great social contact with. Yeah, because I'm not saying that. You will find white people that you have great social contact with. That's
not only that, but it will be a benefit to your life. Bring positive things for you.
Definitely.
Have no intention to harm you.
Definitely.
You know, all these things are valid. You don't agree with that?
No, I haven't finished my point. Okay. I'm thinking about T telling us before we talk over each other. And I know we do that, but okay, so you'll find white people that you have great social contact with. That's true. And you'll also find white people that will stand up for your cause, right? But then what is your cause? If your cause is, integration and submission to their domination, then you want what they want. But when your cause becomes sovereignty.
You're talking about an economic level, right?
No, I'm talking about on our existence.
Are you sure?
On the level of, I'm talking,
I don't hear that.
Not strictly economic. I'm talking about strictly on our collective existence. Our collective existence as a people. The appropriate thing for us to do as ex-slaves in this nation is to push for our sovereignty. That's the appropriate thing to do. Integration is inappropriate. Well, and speaking on integration, we have been integrated since 1964. That's when the Civil Rights Act was signed. Was it 64? Okay, we've been integrated for a long time.
We are integrated.
The numbers are in. Integration is a failure. It's not failing because there's no room for us in the system. It's failing because the system is saying we didn't build this for you.
It's not failing. It worked the way that they intended it to work. We integrated as a subordinate group in this country.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to be a part of a white country, you can't be.
And again, why is it a white country?
Because it is a white country.
Why?
This was built as a white country.
Who built it?
The people who started this country were white leaders.
See, no, they were white people. See, they weren't just an elite group of white people that came here and said, we're going to build this country. Every white person that got on a boat and came over here shared their ideology. They conquered this land. They called it their manifest destiny.
Yeah, you don't
from
have to be
sea
elite to be
to shining sea. What white person in that story, like you're saying, oh, it was just a few of them. No. Did they say it was a few of them? Did they say this is a land for a few white people? Or did they say this is a white man's country? They said white men without qualification. They included every one of them. Every one of those white people were better than you.
Yeah, I just said this is a white country. This was established as a white country and it still is today.
You said...
Now, as a black person, you don't want to take part in being in a white country. That's not going to make it possible for you to... of course, you're not going to... As a white country, and I'm speaking collectively, of course, there's not going to be a group that's going to be positioned to be in a position that can outcompete white.
That can compete fairly. That can compete fairly. Is that what you're saying?
It's not going to be set up. It's always going to be set up so that whites have that competitive advantage. This is a white country.
It's always going to be set up,
but see, the reason why they maintain a competitive advantage is not just because they were out on the track before us and they ran. That is because they do everything they can to undermine the steps that we take. They underdevelop us. And listen, we pay taxes for them to underdevelop us. The programs that they use to underdevelop COINTELPRO, Operation Black Desk, and all these SWAT teams and all these, counterintelligence programs they have going on to specifically underdevelop the black community, we pay taxes for that.
We pay for them to oppress us.
Right.
So yeah, my main thing is because I definitely agree with a lot of what you guys say, especially when you're speaking collectively. The black collective versus the white collective. But when that thinking influences your individual perspective, because we're talking about interracial relationships, which is a very individual thing whenever you're in a relationship with one person. When that collective thinking threatens that, I think you've got reality skewed.
Let me, because y'all are arguing at this point. I'm on their side on most things, but when I'm looking at somebody that I'm dating with, I do see them as an individual. I don't look at them as I'm dating society, but I realize the issues that society is going to cause on our relationship, and I realize the issues that society plays on how far we can actually go, we can actually move forward. Like what Troy was saying earlier, it'd be very easy for us to have a superficial relationship. Right. We can go out to parties, we can go out to restaurants, we can hang out, we can enjoy each other on a personal basis, but to build a life together, now the issue starts to come, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Right. And I'm not saying it's easy, but my point is it's possible. And it takes the right kind of people to pull something like that off. A lot of people can do it. But I believe I'm one of them, and there are many more people like me who can pull those things off.
Well, I tell you one thing. Whenever I see a black man who has settled down and married a white woman and started a family with her and the whole thing, and built a life with her and all kinds of stuff, I for some reason I automatically think that he is the one who's compromised in that dynamic. And I could be wrong. It could be her that has compromised. But one thing is for certain, there has to be some compromise. There has to be some compromise.
No, there doesn't need to be compromise. You should never, if you're in a relationship with somebody, compromise all over yourself. You're already setting it up to fail. A relationship can't succeed if either one of you is suppressing all of yourselves around each other. That's not genuine.
Well, look at this. There's this one black brother. I don't know him personally. I know of him. But he's black and he's a conscious brother, right? He married a white woman and he has some children with her. He ends up having a conversation with another brother who I suppose he married a black woman and he has some children with the black woman. And he had an opportunity to meet, his friend's children, and he said, "Wow, your children are so woke," He says, "Because I teach them every day about race. I teach them very directly about race." And then he thought back to himself and his own life and his own children. He doesn't do that in his household. He doesn't teach his children about race and so on because of how the complex dynamic. But he himself as an individual is a very woke brother, But he's gotten himself into this dynamic because he too believed, that we can do this because we connect so personally. We can work this out. No problem. And I think that's what happened too with folks who ends up in an interracial relationship, because I was in an interracial relationship 2 years ago, is that we created our own bubble. We exist in our own bubble, our own world, our own space, but God, whenever that bubble ended up out there in the world, we both were very uncomfortable.
That's what I'm saying. It depends on the development of the two individuals, because it's a lot of external pressures that are going to start raining down on you. You guys have to be a strong team. You guys have to be prepared to face those pressures, because as an interracial couple, you're not going to last if you aren't having these conversations from the get-go.
I think it's more than external pressures.
Your friend was backtracking. These things should have been set up from the get-go.
The guy's not my friend, the one. I know of him through, podcasting and stuff. You know what I'm talking about, Sammy, right?
Kamau Bell.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in that example, something like this, you have to get a jump on these things, because these are seriously hard pressures to overcome that a lot of people can't do.
A group of white people that call themselves the African People's Solidarity Committee. These are white people who denounce their white privilege, call white people the oppressors of, and they really denounce colonialism, imperialism, white supremacy, and they really are talking about uplifting black people and do whatever they can to denounce the power that they've stolen and really make things more equal and just. Now, if you can get down with one of them 20 white people, then we
well, salute to them.
Them 20.
Salute
to
them. Salute to them.
About sacrifice.
If there's 20 of them, there's at least 1,000 more.
Oh, yeah, that's some hopeful thinking right there.
Well,
you can contact the group.
I'll just say that when it comes down to,
We can talk.
you know, the reason black people don't have sovereignty is because we don't want it. We don't fundamentally want it. Yeah. We don't want to separate from white people. So I don't care about all the black nationalist language you use. When it comes down to it, you will never separate from these people. Whether your number is 20,000, 2,000, or a good 20. There is always going to be a white person in your life that you feel too invested in to give up. So when push comes to shove, you're going to be standing on their side whenever the fight goes down. And you just have to admit that position.
Yeah. And I think the harsh brutality of our contact with them has created that dynamic in us. I think with that sentiment, where that, started with us is like being on a plantation, you're a slave. The only image of freedom that you see is the white folks who are moving around. Other than that, you have no idea what freedom is. So when freedom comes, you have to, replicate that as much as you possibly can. You have to dress like them. You have to talk like them. You have to have everything they have in order to feel free. Because for some people, freedom is a feeling. It's not an actuality. It's something that I feel.
Freedom is
you know what I mean?
Feeling.
In addition to that,
yeah, but freedom is actually beyond the feeling. It goes way beyond a feeling.
We think
when you feel free, you cap what freedom is. You say, okay, right. Freedom is limited to what I feel. All right, I feel good. I can move around. I can do this, but that's the illusion of freedom when it's limited to a feeling. There's a whole big reality around freedom that we have not, as a people, sat down and defined for ourselves what freedom will be. Oh, and one of the things that we have not determined is that we're still a dominated group. And freedom, part of that definition, when we sit down and define it, is going to be us getting out from the domination of another group of people who have demonstrated historically that they hate us. They hate us. See, because if they've demonstrated that they love us, then this is nothing to talk about. It's a moot point. But they have demonstrated that they hate us.
We still feel like we need their permission to be free. If ever we're taking actions that seem too free, that they don't seem totally down with, there's always a Negro saying, well, hey, maybe you're not responding right. Maybe the issue is you're not dealing with being black right. Because I think you mentioned this earlier, black people have a double responsibility. We both have to bear their actual oppression and then respond to it the right way. So it's not enough that we have to actually bear the whip, literally, for many years of white supremacy. But then we have to respond right. We can't respond by hating all of them, even though they all participated in our oppression without fail. Even the good one in your mind was sitting in the big house, eating the food you put on her table. So, I mean, I think that that's always been the case, and that eventually it's going to get to a point where just choose your side. You're either really on the side of freedom or you're really not. And if you're talking about including white people in the quote unquote black cause, and you're talking about integration by another name, because that is integration.
I would like to agree with you that there's good white people. I have business partners that are white. I have mentors or people that inspire me, influence me through their writings and videos and audios that are white. But I think if you actually sat down with them long enough and asked deep enough questions, you'll find out they really may not be as friendly as you initially thought.
It depends.
So what makes them good?
It depends because, white supremacy, that system conditions everybody.
Yeah,
it conditions people who are white and non-white. And so if you pry deep into, because a lot of white people walking around their living lives, they don't have to think about certain things. They've never had to think about certain things. So of course, if you start to pry, you're going to start to provoke those things that they've never had to think about. And those reactions can go one or two ways. They can be open to it. They can be closed off, shut down, and completely not even go down the path of being educated of their own conditioning through the system that is designed for them to thrive.
Yeah, really, Primo, what you just said wasn't good white people. You basically described a useful white person. Basically told me all the ways you could benefit from your relationship with them. But basically said, when you sit down with them, you really find out who they are, you find out that they're not good people. But they're still useful.
I dig it.
And again, it doesn't mean that you won't have positive social contact with white folks. But like I keep saying, I think it's the positive social contact that keeps us confused. It keeps us confused about what our objective is. We don't talk about freedom anymore. You know why? Because we think and we believe that we're free. We don't have those conversations anymore. We don't have a think tank to say, how are we going to figure this thing out to get ourselves out from under the domination of this group of people? We don't even talk about our existence here in those terms that we're under someone else's domination. We don't even discuss it that way.
What do you think about that, Twin? What do you think about conversations of black sovereignty? What do you get from that? What he's saying, or black economics, or acting as a social group?
I'm not the guy. When you're talking about money, power, control, economics, I'm definitely not the guy. They had to force me to sign my retirement plan. When it comes to matters of like money, power, control, wealth, I'm just not all that into it.
Okay. So basically, if it affects you, you don't care.
Generally, unless it has like a direct impact on my life.
Yeah.
That stops me right like today. No, I'll just keep moving. I just keep moving on with my life.
Okay.
Put other things on the forefront. Connecting with people.
All right, so here's another question. Do you believe that historically black people have been harmed in their contact with white people? And do you believe that black people are still affected by that harm?
They've been harmed by contact by certain white people, not just white people in general. I don't think that just being around white people is going to harm you. No, I don't think that.
Okay. I had another question there, but I was a little impacted by your answer. But
yeah, because you believe that just contact with white people is a harm to you. I don't feel that. And there's a lot of black people that feel the same.
But even though I'm arguing over and over that the good social contact that we have with white people is the thing that keeps us confused about our plight. You don't think that's problematic?
I don't agree with that position. Agree with you. I don't agree with that statement that you just said right there.
Okay.
That confuses people. I know you have a perspective of that, but other people do not. And you're talking a lot from your experiences. Other people have different experiences.
No, not just from my experience. Not just from my experience.
I'm talking about terrible history that you researched. Yeah, terrible, awful examples of histories that you researched that also shapes your reality.
And you realize you're still living in that history?
I know there's terrible examples of white against black being detrimental to the black collective. Yeah.
You're the one arguing against history.
It's not history. It's current.
It's not just history. It's events that we see today. But still, to let that directly affect your relationships with every white person that you come across is terrible.
Says who?
Terrible.
Says who?
All right, fine. You're just closing off doors to yourself.
What doors?
Doors. When I say doors, I mean because I look at people like doors. There's always an opportunity, not just to integrate, but just to connect with another person walking around, another stream of consciousness, which is all we are as human beings. We're streams of consciousness walking around. So by closing off, I'm not going to connect that person because he looks like this. He's a part of this white collective, which is different from me. So I'm not going to interact with that person. I think it's isolating yourself. And when you start to isolate yourself, you miss out on information because we learn from each other. We share a lot of things across.
Or we limit our contact with them so we can clear our minds. That's another way of looking at it. It's not so much that we're isolating ourselves from them and so on, but we limit our contact because, listen, they have so much domination and control over us. Like, I think it might have been Dr. Umar Johnson who said this, that when he has some sort of meeting, he doesn't want any white people there, not just because he's against white people, but he knows how influenced black people are by white people. You could take a white person, put them in a room full of black people, and that white person automatically becomes the leader. Okay? Automatically. Even though Dr. Umar Johnson is the one who organized this thing, put this thing together, and he's standing in front of the room speaking and talking, they still looking to that white person to be the leader. I've actually seen this happen before in the church that we used to attend, where we'll be sitting in church and the church has one tone to it. As soon as white folks come in, it's a whole different tone. You see, because that's the influence and power that they have. So my suggestion is to us as a people is to separate ourselves so we can get our minds straight. Our minds are not straight because we don't understand our plight. We do think as individuals, and thinking as individuals is destroying us. It's absolutely destroying us. This is the reason why our children can get shot down and killed in the street, and we have no way of addressing it, dealing with it, or getting justice.
It's not
it is
just
absolutely
shot
destroying
down,
us.
shot down and killed in the street. You can literally be kidnapped and put in a jail cell, and haven't done anything wrong,
right,
and held there until you give up and plead guilty, or he's suffering the system
with no trial.
That's your reality. That could be you. At any point,
and I'm aware
a policeman can grab you and say, you did this. Say you're guilty to it. You don't want to say you're guilty? All right, well, 3 years in Rikers. You come out a criminal.
I'm more than aware of the system that I live in.
I'm a little concerned about you.
So this is why it would behoove you to start thinking of ways you can act against that system. Not only for you, but for the people who are born in the same place that you're born in. Because that's not a fair condition. At any point, you can be shot in the street or put into a jail cell to slave away making McDonald's uniforms and Starbucks cups. Why would you just ignore all that and walk through life?
Just for some vagina.
I mean, it's not just for some. Hold on a second. I can't even. What you say?
Just for. I said.
I know you kind of mumbled through it.
I'm joking.
I said just for some vagina.
I'm joking.
Such raw language.
That was too clinical.
Don't you think that's a little selfish?
If that's your response to all of that, and your response, the way you're taking
My
it,
response isn't to hate white people. My response is to love black people. And think of ways I can help black people. I'm a little unconcerned with white people and their individuality. I'm more concerned with what we can do to fight against the system that they have built.
and you guys saying that isolating from white people is the remedy.
I'm saying it's not healthy for freedom to be constantly around the people that enslaved you. It's not healthy to be around people that have an agenda. They literally program your television, the television your children watch, to have them think in a way that confirms their authority over you. They program their schools for the same reason. It's like they're doing this as you court their daughter, thinking that she's not a part of the system. They are literally oppressing your children, and you're willing to ignore it because it interferes with how you'd like to view their daughter.
These are all individuals.
It's not ignoring. It's not ignoring.
It's not just that. To go a little deeper on the point that I just made about being snatched off the street and being shot at any point. That's your reality. That's also the reality of your cousin. It's the reality of your brother. It's a reality of the young kid that lives down the street that looks up to you. I don't want to say his name, but you know his name. Mm-hmm. It's a reality of the black people you went to school with. And at any point, those people could suffer in the system and end up in prison. Have their lives ruined. And how do you just go about your day? It's basically what you're suggesting. Although this is my reality, I'm gonna go about my day. How do you do that?
Because I'm not gonna put the blame on somebody who wasn't directly responsible for that. That's not my style.
Okay. Well, I'm not worried about the blame. I'm talking about actively working against the system like that. What do you do to actively work against a system like that? So for example, unemployment in the black community is high. Part of the reason is a lot of black people can't start companies to hire their own. White people, they don't really hire black people. They hire 1 or 2 black people to fill certain positions. So if we had more black businesses, black people would work at those businesses. We wouldn't have this. So what white people do to continue that, to make sure that we're continually in a situation, you can give your money to Bank of America, but if you go to Bank of America and ask for a business loan, they're not going to give it to you for the simple fact that they're black. Mm-hmm. Now, when when the Justice Department sues them, they'll pay the $15 million that they have to pay because $15 million ain't shit. And they will continue their same practices. So do you continue to bank at Bank of America?
I don't bank at Bank of America.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter?
I mean, it doesn't really matter the bank. I mean,
because what?
It's a white bank. It's a white bank.
So why not go to a black bank?
What I'm saying as a black man, I'm not ignorant of the disadvantages that that are developed.
They're not just disadvantages. That it's oppression. It's not. It's a foot on your neck. It's not disadvantage.
Right.
It's a foot on your neck.
Yeah. You are under their domination. It's not just a simple, we have some challenges we got to overcome. It's not just simply that.
It's a disadvantage.
You are
I mean, if the simplicity of it is offensive, then you can't be so sensitive. But yeah, it's just a disadvantage.
It's not just a disadvantage.
It's not.
It's not an accident. It's
no. I'm not saying it's an accidental disadvantage.
It's not
It's a strategic
over the
disadvantage.
hill. It's someone holding you. It's not disadvantage.
Yeah,
it's someone else.
climbing.
It's external. Someone else is holding you.
Weighing you down, keeping you from climbing.
Someone else thinking ahead of you. Oh, they're probably gonna. So we're gonna make sure.
Yeah.
It's not a disadvantage.
And also just the social contact piece, because you're talking about how there's programs designed on television to embed it in the mind. I watched my daughter, grow up on Disney basically, and how she took in all these white supremacist ideas and how it affects her. She's a beautiful little girl, but she wants blonde hair and blue eyes and light skin. And so it's my job as her father is to get that crap out of her. All right. To get her thinking straight about who she is, how beautiful she is, how beautiful her people are. Right. Should the day come that her buddy, her uncle, walks in the house with some white girl that has blonde hair and blue eyes, it's going to confirm for her what she has been taught to suspect about herself. And that is that she's not beautiful. And that is part of the evil of that contact, is that it's not that it's done intentionally. It's just done because we're confused. We're confused. We're confused about how our actions and even our inactions, how it affects one another.
Right.
We're very confused about that. And that contact keeps us in that confusion. That's my issue with interracial dating.
In no way should you suppress your life because you don't want to have, you don't want to indirectly affect somebody in a way that you don't want.
It's more.
You cannot control that. You cannot control how people take in the things you do.
It's more.
If people take in the no. What I'm saying is that I understand the especially with image, how white beauty and white aesthetic is promoted from young, and we absorb that, and we get, and our image of beauty gets distorted when growing up. But to respond to that, like, all right, I don't want to influence my black children growing up by having them watch me with a white woman. I'm not going to live my life that way. I'm not going to limit myself because of the harm that's being done to a system that I didn't create.
But you have that responsibility. That is the same.
No, that's a responsibility that you are projecting, and you don't have that authority.
But you
do not have that authority.
Yeah, and you don't have the authority to say you don't have that responsibility when your actions and your inactions affects other people.
Exactly.
It's the same mentality.
You cannot control that.
Okay, let me finish this point. I know I can't control it. I definitely can't control it. But I'm just making a point. All right, it's the same attitude that the kid on the street who's selling drugs, who's, involved in that, the same attitude he has. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't have responsibility to this community.
Same attitude as OJ.
You're absolutely wrong. You are the one that's supposed to be guarding this community and building it up. The fact that you take on the mentality is that I don't have to worry about this. This is the reason why our collective condition is so poor. It's so poor. Okay? But this is the flip side of it. If a war breaks out for white supremacy, it will be you that will get sucked into that war and pushed out on the front line to fight and protect their interests. But you won't protect your own.
Go willingly.
Okay, here's my resolution.
Willingly on their
if Lily
side.
wants to have a conversation on why Uncle Twin is with a white woman, we can have a conversation. And I can talk about...
Doesn't matter what you say.
The conversation won't change
what
anything?
What I'm saying is that this is the field of my control. This is the field of my control.
You're already doing...
Me being attracted to this white woman and being around her because we're connected on this level that we're doing this relationship thing, and how that affects other people, those are one of those external pressures that do not concern me.
None of that
I want this to be a
means
successful
anything.
relationship.
None of that
and
means
it's not going to
anything.
be a successful relationship if I'm concerned how it's going to affect other people.
None of that means
Don't talk over each other.
The minute you walk in the door with a white woman, doesn't matter what you say afterwards.
Yeah, man.
You've already done it.
Her eyes are going to light up.
And that would be you.
Hey, I can't control that.
It doesn't matter.
I can't control that.
You can control it.
It's on me and it's on her to get that crap out of her. But me,
deep down inside,
But
you
get
want
what
her,
out of her?
No, deep down inside, you want her to see that. You want her to see you date a white woman.
That's false.
Because that's what you believe.
No, that's false.
But get what out of her? What is it that you want to get out of her?
The distorted images that because she's black, her hair looks like this, her skin looks like this, that she's not as beautiful.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, who put
that thing?
Who put that in their head?
White supremacist systems.
Right. And what is the model of beauty that they replaced her model of beauty with? The white woman on your arm. So you're buying into that system when you bring a white woman home.
If that's how you see it, but that's actually not how I look at it.
It doesn't matter how you look at it.
It does, though.
No, it doesn't.
Yes,
because
it does,
the system
I'm the one in the
operates without
relationship.
you. The system didn't ask a twin, hey, we're going to set up the system of white supremacy. You know, how would you like it set up? You know, we're thinking about doing this thing with women and setting white women up as a standard of beauty. What are your thoughts on that? They didn't do that. So it doesn't matter what you think. When you operate in the way they designed for you to act, you are confirming it because they designed it that way.
When the kids in Chicago get out there and shoot and kill one another over drugs and over gang activity
and accidentally shoot
beef,
somebody
and
who was
not even accidentally when they hit their target and they kill one another, even in accidents as well. But when they do that, that is what the system was designed for them to do, to self-destruct. You know, like do that, self-destruct. You know, God forbid, you know, black men say, hey, you know what? We're going to stand up together and we're going to take responsibility for our own. You know, God forbid that they should ever happen. That's the reason why all of that social contact between the races even exists in the first place, is to keep you from thinking inward and keep thinking this whole, we're all individuals and we all can just be out here and just get along and have sex with each other. And it's just sex. Forget about the histories and the prison systems and all kind of stuff. Let's just get out here, have fun, dance, party, and have sex. You know, but we never get to the real issue that we're confronting, we're facing, is that we are still a group that's under domination and we're suffering under that oppression. We're dying from it. We're in poverty for it. We are in prison for it. We're under that domination.
I can't believe you guys are saying being with a white woman is setting back the race. Like that just sets back black people. That sets us back. It harms us. I can never disagree with that. If anybody wanted to have a conversation with me about it, I'll explain to them the right reasons why I'm in the relationship with this individual. And I'll explain it clearly.
And I don't doubt that you will be able to, because like I told you before, I've been in a interracial relationship before, and I know what that felt like. I know what that feels like to be in that kind of relationship. And, you know, it was beautiful love letters, you know what I mean? And it was great poetry, and it was romantic, and it was good times and all that kind of stuff, you know? But I do know that looking at myself as an individual, I'm not saying was your experience or whatever, but I do know that I was an individual who had self-esteem issues, and I was looking to her to validate me. You know what I mean? And she did validate me. She wasn't a 100% white woman, but she was a white Puerto Rican, you know, and from upper middle class background. And she made me feel special, other than what my reality was, you know, from our contact and our conversations and so on. So that social contact kind of confused me, especially in my youth. And I'm young, and I'm just learning to become militant. I'm just learning about my identity, just learning about Malcolm X and all this other kind of stuff. And she was right there in the pocket with me, reading Malcolm X too, and us having conversations about it and the whole thing. But I do know, looking back, that kid was confused and had low self-esteem, and she brought a certain value to my life, right? That was not really rooted in my reality, but in the experience that we were having as individuals. You know, I think that's the same thing that happens. Even when you have a black athlete, you know, who gets with the white woman, she makes him feel successful the way his car does, the way his watch does, his shoes does, his ring does, his chain does. Now he has a white woman. That's part of the successful package. You know what I mean? This is why I was like, salute to LeBron James and Steph Curry, who married women that's from their background, you know, that's from their real life, instead of from this stuff, you know. But I think we get caught up in that stuff too, without the celebrity, without the money, without all of that. We get caught up in that too. If we're walking down the street and some white girl gives us attention, oh man, I love your hair. Like, how do you get your hair like that? We feel some kind of way about that. And that's the part that keeps us confused. And I don't know. That's my only point. I think I'm done.
So I guess.
So do we have any takeaways from this?
I just want to make the point that sometimes we talk about there's a system and it's different from the individuals, but individuals do make up the system. It is the individual judges that put black people away. It's the individual cops that shoot black people. It's the individual agents that screw black people out their money. Individual lawyers, we're talking individual whites that are continually contributing to the system. So you're talking about a whole bunch of individuals that's propping up this system, and they're doing it very, very well, very strongly. So you can't continue to separate the collective from the individuals. The individuals are playing their role, knowing their role, and playing it very well. So,
to piggyback that, you know, it was an individual white woman with Emmett Till. It was an individual white woman with Scottsboro Boys. It was an individual white woman with, Tulsa and Rosewood, and the list goes on and on and on. And just recently, it was an individual white woman who made up this whole story about these black men who raped her. This is just like last week or something. Like all these black men that raped her, and then they finally broke her down, and she confessed it was a lie. You know what I mean? Now, sure, there are white women who would never do that, right? Of course. But we're just talking about the individuals and the system.
Right. I think a very important part to me is if you understand the system that you grew up in, you understand how it held you back, the things you could have done, or the things you would have wanted to do, but you couldn't do because you were held back by the system, and how it's hurt those around you. I feel like we all have a responsibility to each other to make sure that the next generation behind us doesn't have those limitations set upon them the way they were set upon us.
I think our relationship with them is detrimental to our efforts to be free. I don't think you're really interested in freedom, to be honest, or freedom how I define it, because you don't want separation. You can't want interracial relationships and want separation. So, and that's, you know, what exists in your relationship dynamic with white women exists for some black people in their relationship dynamic with their career, or, you know, whatever it is from the system that you want, whether it's, you know, validation through their academic institutions or, you know, status of a particular nature, whatever it is that you want personally from white supremacy, that will determine the nature of your relationship to black sovereignty. And that's all that's going to come out in your, you know, justifications of dating white women or, you know, what have you. So it is what it is, pretty much.
Final thoughts, Twin?
When you're with somebody for the right reasons, race should not be a detrimental factor. That's the first point that I started with, and that's the last point that I'll end with. When you're in a relationship for the right reasons, race should not be a detrimental factor if you guys are working together properly.
Just remember to avoid the sunken place, y'all.